Hello, everybody.
Hello, everybody. Welcome, welcome, welcome. And tonight we have our special co host, Brian James, joining us again,
Howdy, howdy.
and very special guest, candidate for Alabama Governor, Jared Budlong.
Thank you for having me.
So, welcome everybody to the show tonight. As everybody knows, this is a little bit different than what we usually do, but I'll let Jess tell us a little bit about how we found Jared.
Well, obviously, like Terry said, he is an independent candidate, an independent write-in candidate for Alabama governor, and I honestly had hit the point where I wasn't sure if I was going to vote at all because both candidates are kind of horrible. Um, and I was scrolling through TikTok, and because of what side of TikTok I happened to be on, he came across the page because he runs a TikTok on there, and that is actually how I found him. And I forwarded that video to Terry and my husband and everyone else, and it just kind of snowballed from there.
And
So
here we are.
which video was it? Because I don't think I've ever gotten that. We've ever clarified that. Do you remember which one it was?
I can tell you.
Yeah, okay,
Yes,
makes me curious
yeah.
because there have been a couple that have quote unquote popped off for a bit, and I'm curious if it's one of those or if it's one of the little smaller ones that are what I find. Most of them are a little more meaningful, but they don't usually get as much attention as the ones that you know get a lot of attention. Typically aren't the ones that I wish would, but you know,
Well,
I
and
know.
that kind of how social media is.
Yeah.
You put out them heartfelt messages, hardly anybody responds. But boy, the minute you goof off, man, everybody and their fucking mother responds.
Well,
Yep.
I've been lucky. The two of the ones that have done the best were intentional. Those were I actually intentionally made those. They were a spur of the moment, but they were definitely intentional. But they were the ones that were, they were having a little bit of fun with TikTok, knowing kind of what they like, and they went rather, they've done rather well. But
Well, it was the one just after they overturned Roe v. Wade, where you were explaining that. You said,
no, explaining both candidates.
yeah, explaining both candidates. That's the one I actually saw.
So that's one of the few that has gone well. When that's one of the ones that I
Mm.
wanted to go viral, just because it's
Well, that's how
in
we
our
found
state.
you. So,
Yeah, I'm thankful that one did. So I don't know how I don't want to take control of your show, but like that's one of the few that man, I really wanted that one to happen because our state planned this 3 years before Roe got overturned, and that's something
yeah.
that even people that live
Right.
here fully understand. We passed the abortion ban 3 years before it was even feasible, and like that should tell you the state of our current legislature. Maybe
And you
not
know,
as a whole. There are people that are trying to do good, but those are outweighed uh, by a large margin by the ones who
well,
are
and you know,
trying to.
I remember when they first passed that 3 years ago. I remember when I kind of had a little freak out about it because I knew this is where this is where we're headed.
Oh, I
They're,
was
oh
out
no, it's not going to
protesting.
get there. It's not going to get there. Yeah, here we are.
Well,
Yeah,
like
I,
the thing
I
that
was one of the protesters in the streets of Birmingham then. Um, I'm 56 years old, so I I have watched women be oppressed, and I hate to get on this whole women are oppressed thing. It's not just the gay community, it's not just the black community. It is white women have been oppressed by these Christian, hyper
I think it's
Christian. I
all
don't want to
women
say
because
all.
they're
I don't want to say hyper Christian conservative men my entire life. I have worked in numerous places where bosses thought it was okay to touch me because I'm a female and they're a man, and what am I going to do about it? They're my boss and I need this job. I mean, and this has happened my entire life, and I I've got a huge problem, and I hate to get on the whole Roe versus Wade rant because there's so much, Jared, and we do want you to take over the show because that's why we have you here. We want people to know where you stand and why you stand there. My thing is, I am not, this kill babies kind of person. I've been pregnant twice. I've had two babies. I love my children. Well, I've got six grandbabies, even more so that I claim as mine than are my blood grandbabies. I am not this person, but I do feel I have a right. In this state, when someone could, I know personally, someone went to jail in a city jail for 30 days because he had a half a joint in his car. I worked in a daycare where one of the little boys that came in there was the product of his grandfather molesting his special needs daughter. This man did no time in jail. The only thing that happened in that case was that baby was removed from the home. Basically, he was the grandfather daddy. And so that shit in Alabama is still real. People don't think so. But, this is one of the reasons why Jess and I kind of started doing a show. Um, it started out being paranormal, but then people were more drawn to our witchy side. And we decided, well, let's talk about, and the real problems of the world, the things that are going on out here. And for everybody in the world that doesn't know, those of us who live in Alabama, if you're not a Southern Baptist or you don't belong to a church, you're the outcast in most cases. And at best, we're in 1950, at best, in
You're not wrong.
2022.
I said something along those lines in a video recently where it was, we're effectively in the 1960s, and a lot of our politicians wish we were 100 years before that.
Exactly. And Meemaw Ivy, let's go ahead and crack that egg open right now,
Yeah.
Jared. So you decided, from what my understanding, correct me if I'm wrong, you decided to run for governor because you got pissed off when you looked into where the COVID relief money went.
It was when I found out that we were spending 20%, sorry, not spending, allocating 20% of our COVID funds, which is $400 million for those who don't know what the total amount was, because I wouldn't have known that offhand either. But $400 million were being set aside or allocated for building new prisons in our state. So in 2021, October-ish, we as a state decided not to help people in the middle of a pandemic, but would rather set some money aside to make more prisons. And the kind of the final straw, because that's egregious anyway. Like that piqued my interest, so to speak. Where it was
Right.
like, well, that is that's atrocious. Why are we doing this? Like that got me to dig into why. And our state's official response is, well, there's a portion of the American Relief Plan that lets you recoup lost revenue, and that's our state's excuse for spending it on prisons is to cover lost revenue. And that had me dig a little deeper. It said, wait a minute, we're building prisons because of lost revenue. Hold on. And because of my privilege and the way I've grown up, the environment I grew up in, I didn't realize for-profit prisons were. I'm not gonna say I didn't realize they were a thing. I didn't realize they were as big a thing as they are. I had no idea. And when that happened, and I saw no one speaking up as a platform, like everyday people are. Those people who know what's going on, heard about it, were pissed and were speaking up, but nobody running, at least at this level, was saying anything. And my gut instinct was actually not to run for governor. I was going to try to do the normal thing, like run for school board or run for something
Right.
local. And nothing in my area where I live, nothing that was available coming up this year that I thought I would do well at, but also had a passion for was available. school board, for instance. I was going to run for that, and that's not up until 2024. So it kind of hit the back burner. And then another creator on TikTok ended up on their live, and they basically said, "Hey, um, the midterms are coming up, and the governor position will be, available in quotes. It's a tough run, but it's up for election." And I kind of gave the look of like, okay, but that's the governor. If you're talking to a normal, just an everyday guy from Daphne, like that's a big leap. And they're
Yeah.
like,
Right.
man,
But Jared,
it's like, oh,
you know,
35 or 30, I think it's 35, 37, and live here.
right.
So
But that's how, I mean, I know Donald Trump is a uber billionaire, you know, and has got money to freaking burn in his backyard like, we roast hot dogs in the South. Um, but I think those people that bought into that,
mhm,
they bought into the because he wasn't a politician,
right,
Yeah.
and I think, yeah, that you could possibly get those Alabama voters.
You
Obviously,
want a
maybe not the
regular
ones that
guy.
are who are so conservative and wrapped up in like that church thing I sent you today. And I
yeah,
sent that to a few of my friends, and holy crap, um, the response from one person, and I'm not going to call them out, but I was just mortified that they thought that, well, I'm reading too much into it. I shouldn't take it, wasn't that bad. And I'm like,
I couldn't finish it. Not gonna lie, I got about halfway, maybe 2/3, and I did not
oh,
finish.
Jared, you've got, it makes me so afraid that I'm
Yeah,
thinking now I'm going to have to go check out a couple of local churches. Brian, I'll send
Yeah.
you this video.
It was
Um,
it was horrifying.
it's horrifying, that there are people out there that churches are pushing, and this person was saying, well, they're standing up for God and what they believe in. Maybe I am reading more into that, but that was
Well,
so much
but if you
more.
twist that and we were to go out there and get all of our witch friends together and we were to start making a pledge to, the horned god or, whoever, everyone's going to have a
Hell,
problem with
Satan.
that.
yeah.
Everyone's going to have a problem with that. And if it's a problem for any other religion, it should be a problem for them too. I
Right.
So,
don't know.
Jared, I got to ask you a question, man. Of course, I'm, Washingtonian. I'm up here in Spokane, Washington, and I know a little bit about Alabama. And no offense, guys, but Alabama's fucked.
We know we are
We
fucked
know.
up. People ask me all the
All
time, why do you stay? And I stay because if we all leave, who's going to be here to change it? You know,
right,
Nobody.
who's going to be here to change? And the weather here is beautiful. I
Yeah,
mean,
you wake up
I
in the morning and you put on a jacket and you end the day in flip flops. I mean, where else can you experience all four seasons in
and
one day?
that that leads me into my question. If you're elected governor, my friend, what
Yeah.
are some of the first things that you're going to change about Alabama and why?
The first thing I'm going to look into, and it's the three platforms, the prison system is the one that I am most passionate about, and it usually confuses people because I don't have any direct connection to the prison system. Like I don't have any family that I'm aware of that are currently in the prison system. Like I don't have uh, you know friends that have spent a ton of time in the prison system. I'm learning more and more as this goes on about the way the whole system works. What I do understand is that the best way it's never been phrased to me is that we are all one new law or unknown law away from being a criminal. And the fact that there is a history of our country and our state making laws that directly impact groups of people that um, threaten those in power, I understand how problematic that the system could be for everyone not just the people that are currently being put through the system. And that's where my main passion and focus is. The other three or the other two of the three are healthcare and education. So we can get to those in a second. But the reason I bring up the prison system is that's the thing I want to focus on first. So the idea is to, when I first get into office, create a group. We're going to say it's a commission or a committee, whatever you want to call it, but to review all of the current actual incarcerated cases and find the ones that should not be there, like no questions. Like, for instance, Willie Simmons. If you're not familiar with that case, please go get familiar. He has been in prison since 1982. If I remember the year correctly, it's been 40 years, and it is for a theft of a wallet that had $9 in it. And because of our laws, he has been in prison since.
That's petty theft. That like holds 30 days
Wow.
up here in
Well,
Washington.
so
Wow.
it was a felony, and we have a habitual felony offender act. So if you are convicted of 4 felonies, one of which has to be a class first class 1 felony. It's nearly midnight, so please forgive me. But that if one of them is a first class, we're going to roll with right now, and that essentially just means you get life without parole. That just
Yeah.
it turns into life without parole. It's
Right.
other
Well,
people call it a 3 strikes rule, but it's in Alabama. It's technically 4. It's 3 prior felonies and a fourth one that's the quote unquote highest level. But it can be burglary. There is a scenario where your final felony is burglary, and you go to jail for life without parole.
Gotcha.
So that's
Yeah.
So,
that's the first thing I want to do, because the reason that's relevant is we're 180% to capacity. People wise, we have 180% to capacity inside of our prisons right now. So if we were supposed to house 100 people in a building, we have 180, and that's an average, which means there are places that are much more packed than that.
And
Now, who gets let out? That's what the committee's for. Like, I'm not saying we should release every single person who has a drug charge, because that could be somebody who murdered people and has murdered several people in the past. I'm not saying who
right.
yet. That's what the
Right, but
committee's
you're
for.
talking about like the people like my friend who did 30 days in the city jail for literally a half
Right.
a joint. I mean, a
Yeah.
half a joint. It cost
Generally, I
them
say
more to
victimless
house
crimes.
him for 30 days. I mean, if
uh,
you didn't write him a ticket and make him come to court and pay court fees, but 30 days in jail.
Yeah. And I generally just call them victimless crimes, because I'm trying to find the people that there's no reason they should still be in prison, right? Like, if
right.
Right,
let's say, for whatever the quote unquote punishment, or punishment's not the right way to handle things. We know that doesn't work. That's a whole other part of the show potentially. But if they're in prison and there's no victim, like, let's find a way to get them out. Twofold, like, let's get them back into society so they can be with their loved ones, their friends, get back into, if you want to think about it from an economic standpoint, get them back into a job, like, help them be a part of society, rather than
Yeah.
being stuck in a box that
right.
is used
That's
for
costing us
slave
money.
labor. Yeah,
So
exactly.
I don't know if you've seen the question that Wound Man had posted.
Do you feel that the issue of Alabama prisons is realistically something that enough Alabamians are concerned about to form a successful platform on which you can run? And if not, how do we get there?
I'm hoping so, because it's a large part of my platform.
Well,
the
I
thing
mean,
that,
I feel pretty strongly
yeah,
about it.
yeah, the thing that I'm bringing up to everybody is a lot of people don't realize that we still have slavery across the country, but in our state, people don't realize it.
Right. And I
And
mean, out the Alabama prison system, doesn't matter if you're in city, county, or state, federal. If you're in jail here, you are a slave. I mean, they literally have them walking the highways, picking up trash, which I don't think they should do nothing. But I also think that's a huge risk for
Well,
well,
safety,
I'll say this.
for
So
having them out there.
yeah, I'll say this. So if we're going to use them for labor, then we should be paying them for that labor. because
Yeah.
it's doing a public service. They should be
Right.
paid for it, because
Well,
otherwise it literally is just slavery. And we literally, well, we fought a war over it. I actually don't think that war ever ended. We just changed uniforms and
yeah.
changed weapons, but that's a whole nother perspective on that.
Yeah.
But people need to realize, and that's part of the things I'm using the campaign for, is like, look, you have to realize that everybody could end up in that position. I know you think you won't be, but all they have to do is pass another law. Like, oh, I don't know, 2019, like we just passed a law, and one of my videos that went rather well was about the death penalty. I was like, look, there's a guy who's been sitting on death row since before I was born. He's been in death row since before I was born. And they were like, why are you making such a big deal out of death row? Like, they did something. I'm like, A, there are innocent people on death row. Like, we just know that happens. But also, B, like, do you not realize that they could just make a law that, makes you a criminal, that turns you into something or into a case that ends up on death row? I was like, that's a thing. And then, oh, look at that. Abortion is illegal, it could be considered murder. It's not in our state yet, but could be. And
Hmm.
then, with the Habitual
And
Felony
then,
Offender Act and other things, like, you could very easily end up on death row. Like, that's not hard for them to do, given enough time. So that's a long answer to get around to
hey,
to the end,
understandable.
I hope. But
And I'm
um,
I'm
yeah,
actually going to jump in with one of our first questions from outside people. And they wanted to know, why did you choose to run as an independent rather than either party?
yeah, it's twofold. The quick and easy answer for anybody who is in either party is, I didn't have enough money or enough time to raise the money to pay the fee to run as either party. So the Democratic Party in Alabama charges 3% of the annual salary for the position you're running to
Oh,
be on to run as a Democrat. So for the position of governor, I think it's about $1,500. You would have to apply to run with that much money to even run as a Democrat. And that, for me, when I decided to run, was about a week or two before the cutoff. So I would have had to have raised a decent chunk of money as a non previously politically active person. Was kind of it wouldn't have happened, because I didn't reach that threshold for fundraising until very recently, having been campaigning for 4 months or 5 months. So the longer answer is, I don't believe either party actually cares about people. And I mean
mhm.
that from the party standpoint. There are people in those parties that probably do care about people, especially
But on the whole,
on the
this
Democratic
party.
Party. Yeah, on the Democratic side, I support a couple candidates that are running for like local like district seats, and we
Mhm.
engage regularly. And I see they're trying to help the people of their districts, and I support them as best I can. They can't do a whole lot to support me publicly. A couple have taken some chances, but they can't support me publicly because of the way that party is written. Like, they have rules against supporting people publicly, and like, if that doesn't tell you something, like, the parties, again, the parties, I do not think care about people.
Yeah.
They both care about making sure that money comes in and goes to the right places, and that's about it. That's what those parties do. They don't have um, an ideology that they're trying to focus on. And for anybody in Alabama, like, look at our current Democratic governor candidate, and if you were surprised by that, tell me why I should run as a Democrat. Like, what does that mean to you?
I
Like, what
mean,
does it
at
mean to be a
best,
Democrat? Yeah,
at
like, well, it's just,
best,
yeah, and that's what I've told a couple
Republican
people.
Republican and Democrat does not break down to right and left at all. At
Yeah,
best, most Democrats are centrist.
yeah, it's
Maybe a
I mean,
little lean, but
yeah, depending on what scale you're looking at, yeah, either
yes, yes,
center
yes.
or center right to extreme far right, for
Yeah.
sure. And that's kind of what I pointed out to a couple people in the parties who said, like, hey, why didn't you run as a Democrat? And I was like, I mean, why should I? Like, what does your party offer me? Like, you didn't support the Democratic candidates for governor that you have. You didn't vet any of them. Like, you didn't support them monetarily. Like, why would I run? Like, I don't understand why you think I should. Like the only thing, the only thing that you have going for you is your platform doesn't restrict me from running as a Democrat.
Hmm.
There are things in it that I don't support. Like for instance, there's a section of the platform that basically says, we are here to support law enforcement, and we're here to support law and order. And it's like, I don't know how to tell you, but like that means you don't support the people. Because like
Yep.
the police aren't here to support or to protect people.
No. I mean,
Agreed.
the minute
Like,
the minute
that's been
anybody
ruled
starts
on multiple
talking
times.
about law and order, typically it's not a good conversation to have.
Yeah, and the person in the party didn't bring it up, but I brought it up to them. Like, look, your party actually support people, and that's what I'm here for. Like, so if I had a D next to my name in Alabama, that hurts me more than anything. Like, it just
Hmm.
broadly speaking, I'm trying to reach like some numbers. And this is a number I keep bringing up to people because they just don't understand. Everybody thinks that Alabama is a red state, and from a national standpoint, I get it, especially the presidential situation with the electoral college. Yes, because of the way we get gerrymandered, sure, call us a red state. But if
Hmm.
you look at the actual statewide elections, like governor, lieutenant governor, secretary of state, any of the ones that are statewide, those are popular votes, and they do not. It does not matter what your district is, what your county is. It doesn't matter. And looking at those races and the numbers from 2020, we had about 3.7 million registered voters, and of that, 950,000 voted straight Republican. So they just said, "I want Republican. Don't whatever. Just give me the Republican the candidates." 590
And now
somewhere
we
around
have
there.
Tommy
And we
fucking
have Tommy Tuberville.
Tuberville
Yeah.
as
God.
fucking senator. I
Oh.
mean,
So
he
we
was
have
as dumb as a rock.
we've got 950 who said, "Just give me Republican." 950,000, and we had about 600, between 550 and 600,000, give me Democrat. And then I want you to think about the fact there were 1.4 million who didn't vote at all. They were registered but didn't vote. And the point I keep bringing up to everybody that asks is like, look, those people, the ones that I've found, like everyone that I've found that has said I don't vote, that are registered already, say I just don't think it matters.
Yeah.
And
And
it's like,
here,
okay. And in
And
some cases, you're
that's
right.
where I am in the presidential elections.
No, in some cases, I will give it to you. Like even if it's your district. Like I voted in the primaries, and I had four races to fill in bubbles for, four on an entire ballot. And I looked at the Republican ballot, and it was full. I didn't count them because it was somebody else's ballot. I
Right.
just peeked over to
I
see
mean,
it, right?
that's the way it is when we go vote
Yeah,
in my county as well. It's like a lot of times there's not even a Democrat on the ticket for these positions.
right.
There's nobody there. In fact, we know somebody who won just because they didn't have any competition.
Yeah.
There was
There's actually
nobody
a
else
group.
running.
There's a group right now trying to take advantage of that situation called, I think they're just called No Unopposed Seats. They're working on a website and a couple other things because it just got started, but um, they were looking at something in their state and they were saying like, man, how many unopposed seats are there? So they looked at their state and they realized there was a ton. So they started looking at the states around them, and they got to like 560 some odd seats in like the states surrounding them, and they were like, this is we have to do something. Like there are so many seats that are just unopposed that literally anybody could run, and if they had enough people, like they could win just just
Hmm.
not by default because there's somebody there already, but like just take it. Like
Come
it's
in and win
literally
by
there
a
to take.
landslide.
Right.
Yeah, yeah. So they're
So
trying to take advantage of that.
you know, I'm gonna bring up Bernie Sanders here because I mean he ran his. Um, do you think run, especially in this red state, running as an independent hurts the Democrat? I mean, will it take away? 'Cause I know they said that about Bernie that he took away a lot of Democratic votes and stuff. Do you think? What's your stance on that?
I point back to the the registered voters who don't vote. I point back to that and say, hey, look, there's a large chunk, over a third of our registered voters who don't vote, and the ones that I'm talking to say that they don't think it matters because they don't like either candidate. So why even vote? And that's the general answer. The other one is I don't care. Like I
Right.
just uh,
Right.
okay, have better candidates. Like if you want
Right.
your party to do better,
Give us
have better
better
candidates.
candidates. Right.
That's true. That's true.
I
And you
Right.
literally
mentioned,
wouldn't be running. I wouldn't be running if we had a better candidate. Like
yeah.
we didn't have them pre-primaries. Like I didn't find anybody who wanted to say, "Oh, hey, by the way, there's slavery in our state, and we should stop, and we shouldn't be spending COVID money on prisons." Nobody running would say that, and it's like, why? Like, I mean, I have my ideas, but it's also like I don't care if I take from the Democratic Party. I'm not trying to. I am actively not trying to reach out to either side. I am trying to find the
Right.
people who don't normally vote and say, hey, you have a choice, and it's not your normal situation. And by the way, your vote counts here. Like
Right.
if I'm the only race that you fill something in for, yes, please at least do that.
Well, and
I
in the state's case, I mean, if we're taking Democratic votes away from our current Democratic candidate, is that really a bad thing?
Well,
She's
you
not
know,
a
to be
very good candidate.
honest, I was gonna say I've seen her on the news. I think for about 5 minutes, and yeah, I didn't really see much
I,
there.
I don't know many people who consider themselves Democrats who want to vote for that candidate,
Yeah,
and that's on platform alone, no other conditions, because I don't want it to come across as anything other than I think that everyone with a uterus should have a choice on whether or not they get an abortion. If they want one, they should have it. If they need one, they should be able to get it. Like, that's their choice between them and a doctor.
yep,
And I don't think that we should be using our personal religious beliefs to dictate how a government functions. And those two things alone
Amen.
should should caution other people from a candidate. If you believe the opposite of those, I should say, if you don't think that somebody with a uterus should have a choice, then you have an obvious candidate. You actually now have two. So, but
Right. Right.
um, and actually, you mentioned education earlier. That was one of your other big
yeah,
areas that you're focusing on. I have one question, two parts.
okay.
Um, I had somebody who was very curious about your stance and any, feelings or thoughts you have when it comes to the "Don't Say Gay" law and critical race theory, the ban on
Okay.
it.
So the don't say gay law. You're talking about the one where we're not supposed to teach about it in school.
I believe that's the one.
Okay.
Yes.
The two that I'm aware of are the bathroom bill and then the healthcare bill. So I'm not sure that we have anything that's specifically against teaching offhand, but
It says
I'll answer.
House Bill 322. That's
Okay.
all that.
So regardless of what's been passed or is coming down the pipe, critical race theory needs to be considered in school at age appropriate levels. So our Constitution was written to instill white supremacy into law. If you're not sure, go look that up. It's footnote number 9 on the Wikipedia article. It points to a state-hosted webpage. Go look at it. And then regarding the quote unquote "don't say gay" bill, we have to be teaching our students, our youth, what it's like to be a human. And there is a lot of different ways that you can experience life as a human, and they have to know the options and the possibilities. It's not something different. It's just a part of the experience, right? So people like to say, you shouldn't teach about homosexual relationships. And it's like, all right, well then you can't teach about heterosexual relationships because you're teaching half of it. Well, percentages are probably not a good thing to use here, but you're teaching a portion and not the whole. So it's either all or nothing. Otherwise, you're literally skewing our youth one direction or the other.
Yeah, and
Okay.
alienating quite a few.
Yeah.
Um, I do have a question on education as well. So anybody who watches the news has noticed the spikes in elementary school shootings. I personally am trying to bring awareness to this in Washington State, and I can't get nobody in government to call me back. I want to put at least metal detectors and armed security or armed police officers at every school. And most people in government office are against that. I'd like to know your stance on this.
We have to do something to protect our kids. I've got 3 kids in school. Well, starting next year, I'll have 3. I have 2 in school currently. My
Yeah.
concern with adding armed security in schools is the effect that will have on our already traumatized youth who have to deal with police on a daily basis. I'm not. I don't like having to put them through that. I think we need to find a different way to reduce the amount of harm that's happening. And I will also add that schools aren't the only places that those shootings happen. So adding security there solves a problem in one place. The metal detectors, that I don't see any immediate issues with that one. We've already added security in a lot of schools, like doors that don't open unless you show your ID, and the receptionist checks it and lets you in. That's what happens in my
My
school
kid's
district.
school is like that as well.
Yeah, and that's a pain, but I would rather have that than somebody who can just walk in and shoot up the school.
Absolutely, because that's
The armed
exactly what
security guard,
happened in Texas.
yeah, the armed security guards is concerning for our, yeah, especially like our black kids, like the kids that already have to deal with that from a very young age and being scared of the police and having to and knowing that like they can't play with a toy gun in a park without a police officer rolling up and shooting them within 12 seconds. Like, I don't know if we have to put up trigger warnings, but like Tamir Rice, I, I know that's not our state, but that's not uncommon from the black families that I've talked to. That
Oh,
is uncommon. So
absolutely,
like, it's not
absolutely.
my lived experience, but I understand that is something we have to consider. Um,
I
Absolutely.
think there's probably an answer, but there's a really fine line to walk with that particular issue.
yeah. So I mean, and I will say that firearms are a part of the problem. So like I understand that everybody wants their Second Amendment right, and I don't have a problem with firearms broadly speaking. I'm also not an enthusiast, but I would be remiss if I didn't say that firearms are a part of the problem. Like, you
I
can't
agree.
do mass casualties without weapons and tools that are designed for mass casualty.
Right. And
So,
I'll say, I'm obviously not a registered Republican, so people can take that as they will. I am a gun owner, but I went through checks and balances, I had to submit my name to the sheriff and all that crap. Now, from my understanding, this new law they passed, just everybody can have a fucking gun now.
I think
And
it's pistol specific, and I think you still have to sign the permit, but I think you have less. Oh man, I have to go
right,
back
I
and
mean,
look
it's like open
at
carry for
January.
everybody, though. I mean, we could all walk around with our guns, like we're the
Well,
wild,
you say
wild,
all, but
wild
that's not
west.
quite true. You
Well,
say all,
uh,
but that's not true.
legally, from a legal
Legally.
standpoint, you're supposed to be able to, and I believe it is pistols only, if I'm not mistaken.
Right, right.
Yeah, but
Well, but
if you're not
they got
white,
the whole thing. You see the I hate to say the redneck hunters, riding around with the shotguns in their back windows, and they get by with that crap.
Yeah.
I mean, I think there's a whole lot, that needs to be looked into before we just hand someone a gun. I don't think these, and my son-in-law, I'm sorry, I know he's out there listening. um, I don't think anybody should have these weapons of mass destruction. If you're not in the military and you're not over in Iraq or wherever fighting, then why in the hell do you need them on American soil?
I mean,
If
we
you're
have
just a
guns here.
private citizen.
We have guns here as well, though it's mostly hunting rifles and a couple of pistols. My husband, I have no hand-eye coordination. I don't shoot anything, but
I'm not about taking guns as long as people have them legally. I don't think that these kids, you know, for hunting purposes, should be riding around with them in their trucks at 16 and 17 years old. I don't think, I know people that are 25 and 35 that aren't damn responsible enough. So, I mean,
Yeah,
and it
I
brings up
tend to. Oh,
that
go ahead.
that video like I sent you today, I mean that guy's insane, telling people, and I'm not even gonna put it out there publicly what he was saying, but I mean this guy's on TikTok. I mean, that's a scary thought.
Yeah,
That is a scary, scary thought. Brian, of course, I'll send you that video too. Um, but for people like Jess and I who aren't and I guess, anyone outside of Alabama maybe don't doesn't realize when you first meet someone new, the first thing they say, "Hey, I'm Kathy Jones, and I go to Southern Baptist, blah 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 blah. What church do you belong to?"
I dance
And
naked under the moon. Thanks.
yeah, when you say I don't belong to a church or I don't
Oh
believe,
Lord,
then soon they're burning crosses on your front yard. I mean, it has not been that bad
I don't mind
yet,
extra light.
but right, um, my mom has been removed from places because she would not let them basically shove Christianity down her throat when she's supposed to be at a doctor's appointment. I mean, that's how it is in Alabama.
Yeah, it is. So the question that seems to be on everyone's mind, and I think we mentioned it before we started, of course, the question as far as legalizing marijuana. That is a big question that has been
yeah,
asked.
yeah. So I first and foremost, I'm all for decriminalizing marijuana. The legalizing side, I have concerns over who will start selling it and how that will be marketed towards younger generations. So I'm not opposed to it, but I can't just say, hey, let's just legalize it. I think we need to figure out
Right. Well, as you look at
where.
states like Washington and Colorado
I can help you out with that, buddy. And see, like
Look,
with Washington, what we do is we have, like the recreational marijuana shops,
mhm,
which is its own entity. We have 100 milligram cap limit on anything, like if you buy edibles, they're 10 milligrams a piece. You get 10 in a bag equals up to 100. I mean, you go to Vegas and you go to Arizona and they're 4 or 5,000 milligram things. But, if you keep a cap on it, you keep it recreational, 21 and over only, always have to show ID. They have to scan it at the door. Your problem's going to be is a lot of the banks will not want to work with you. That's what
right, because of the federal
Washington had.
restrictions.
Exactly.
Yeah,
Washington had, a lot of issues when they first started. But now that they got most of it figured out, yeah, you still can't accept debit cards for weed, but you give them cash, they add up the sales tax and include
right.
it into the bill, and you give them your money, you get your weed, and you walk out.
so basically a liquor store, but you get weed. I think pretty much like they're doing the CBD shops would be the answer, Jared.
Yeah, I would want to look into it further. I started off by saying legalizing it, but my concern is, to be blunt, my concern is capitalism and how that will
Yeah.
then
Who's going to
potentially
profit?
ruin. Yeah, who will then ruin that what should be a recreational and healthcare product, or resource, and how that will be affected then. That's where my hesitation comes in, is making sure we have a plan to where that doesn't get uh, I guess bastardized is probably the best word. Like
Yeah.
if we decriminalize it and people are growing it and using it, it's fine. Legalizing it and turning it into a business is concerning for me currently. If we can find a way to make that make sense, then we can give it a shot. But
Well,
I'm
if you think
concerned.
of it this way, if you decriminalized and legalized it in Alabama, not only would you get a lot of the drug dealers off the streets for marijuana, but people ain't gonna have to worry about, oh, I just bought a nickel bag off of this guy. What the fuck is it spiked with? Why is there white crystals all over my weed? And I mean, people
Right.
up here, they're sprinkling fentanyl on our weed. They're fucking doing all sorts of shit,
Right.
People need a safe place to go to get their marijuana.
Right. So decriminalizing would help with that. So just because it's
Right.
not legal doesn't mean you can't have safe places to
Right.
obtain it.
Yeah.
So
If someone's not going to go to prison for the rest of their life because they
I
got an ounce
definitely
for
think that
personal use.
that should be your start is decriminalizing, and then find somebody to work with.
yeah, like and this will be what it's 12:15. So well, it'll be recorded for later. But I honestly don't care. Or like they're really handled the same way. My concern is that the safe use and protecting the people who have substance abuse problems.
Right.
I think a lot more of it should be available for people to use because alcohol is, if not more dangerous, is just as dangerous as a lot of those drugs that are currently prohibited from a federal level. But like, why? I
Right.
mean, there's
Well,
there's reasons, right? But
right.
there's not good reasons, and we
Well,
need to find a way of supporting the
I know
people.
someone, that they've lost someone not so long ago in this state to a drunk driver. I mean, he ran right over a car and didn't even realize he hit anything.
Right.
I'm 56 years old. I've known a lot of people who've done a lot of drugs, smoked a lot of pot. I've never known anyone to be killed or robbed a bank or robbed their grandma or
because they
nothing
were
because they were
high
smoking
on
pot.
pot.
Yeah.
You know, the biggest thing with a pothead is they're going to fight about who's going to go to the store and get the bag of Cheetos, man. They're not, most of them are not out to hurt anybody. And I mean, I guess, maybe it impairs their abilities a little bit, but probably definitely no more than having that drink after they get off work, you know?
Well,
Um,
it ties for me. It ties back into the current way the justice system, in big air quotes, the justice system we have is set up. It's not set up to actually solve problems long term. It's just set up to put more people into prison to use them for
and
labor,
keep them
um,
there,
and
yeah,
and
for
and
a long
or
time.
keep them from voting. That's
Right,
maybe not a huge aspect in our state currently, but from a federal level, like that's why marijuana and cocaine were focused on so heavily originally in the first place, was to crack down on black people and hippies. Like
Yeah.
that was why it was
yeah,
done.
to keep
So
those people from voting.
yeah,
Right.
I mean it was
So,
during the what I think it was in the mid '70s when that started cracking down, and they were like, yeah, no, I
right,
mean we can't.
Hmm.
They're protesting against the Vietnam War. Like let's find some other way to lock them up so they can't be protesting. So
right.
And anybody
And
who is interested in a lot of what he's talking about, the things that have happened in the past, I recommend the documentary, The 13th.
yeah,
I found that it covered a lot for me and gave me a lot of knowledge into the past and how it got to where we are now.
right, right. And Jess, I know we had some other questions submitted.
Yes.
I know the environmental one was a big one, so let's try to hit him with that before we get too late.
I'm going to ask you one short one that I think is hilarious, really quick. I don't know if
okay.
you happen to see the Yolanda for Governor page when she posted. Uh, Apparently, she thinks that people who believe in separation of church and state, those people, they must be aliens. Apparently,
That they are not human and aliens have invaded the planet
yes,
is
that one,
a
that one.
more of a direct quote. But yes, I have seen that post.
I was just. It was asked what your
And this
thoughts
is
on
the
that
person
was.
that's up. This is the person running for governor here.
The Democratic candidate, correct?
Yep.
Oh my God.
I'll send you the screenshot. I've got the actual screenshot in the comments of the post that
Yeah.
I made. But
You
um,
know, this whole world is just ass backwards. They legalize alcohol. First of all, people sit there and drink and get drunk 90% of the time. They got big man syndrome and there's fucking brawls out everywhere. But
yeah,
they make pot illegal The hell's a pothead gonna do? Hey man, what's up? Where's the nearest fucking McDonald's, man?
Exactly,
Come on.
exactly.
This is a no-brainer, people. Flip the script. Make alcohol illegal. Make pot legal.
Then again, this is Alabama, and last time prohibition came around, we found ways around that.
Well, I was gonna say
Hmm.
I don't know that making alcohol illegal is the right thing either. Man, prohibition on anything doesn't end well typically.
No.
No,
So
no.
Yeah, they
I,
get tunnel
my
underground, make moonshine, and deliver it to people anyway. So
Exactly.
it's how we
We'll
got
be
Mountain Dew.
running it from Alabama to Washington.
I
It's
know,
how we got
I know,
Mountain Dew in
I know
Nashville.
someone who has it still. So,
Yeah. No, I
you know,
mean, so my direction there would be more focusing on why people feel the need to use those substances as much as they do, rather than criminalizing or making things illegal. It's like, let's find out why people are using them so often. Because if it's just for kicks and giggles, then like do your thing. But the people who are getting raging drunk they're not doing that because they enjoy their life. Like I just
there,
the ones that
that's
I've met,
escapism.
I'll say this, like the ones that I've met aren't doing that because they enjoy their life. They are, as you mentioned, Jess, they're escaping something. So
Right.
let's
They're
address those issues.
miserable.
I have
Yeah,
been there, so
yeah,
Right.
I
They're
not with
miserable in some
alcohol, but
way.
I have been there.
yeah.
And then the question when it came to environmental, when it comes to okay, this person would really like to know when it comes to environmental, such as companies like Alagasco poisoning the community and making it impossible for people to sell their homes, which traps them in poverty while being susceptible to adverse health outcomes. North Birmingham is really bad, and the Supreme Court just made it easier for the companies to not be accountable for their actions.
Yeah, I mean, thoughts on it in general, like
Yeah,
the
thoughts in
company should
general.
be held responsible. Yeah, the company should be held responsible for their impacts on the world around them. Something I'm looking into. I don't know how we'll implement it yet, but that would be something like triple bottom line accounting, where you're not just accounting for your gross income minus your overhead, and you get your profit. You actually have to account for the human cost and the environmental cost of your business. So that would be a way of uh, taxing companies based on how they impact the world around them, including their people. And the example I usually bring up is the poop trains that got accepted in this area, roughly where I'm at right now, in I think it's Adamsville, and we accepted trainfuls, literal trainfuls of human waste from out of state, New Jersey and New York specifically in the most recent episode. That they literally shipped in human waste, dumped it in a landfill, and the landfill got paid for taking on human waste. And like that, they got a fine or something, but it's like that's not enough. Like there
No,
wasn't enough to stop them because they've done it in the past. Like
they
they did it
turned
4 years prior.
they turned Alabama into the latrine for the country. I don't like that.
Well, I mean, damn, we're like the bottom of the damn. And now we have become the toilet for the
And it's
rest of the
because
country.
it's just so cheap. Because it essentially was, if I remember the article correctly, it was a certain dollar amount per tonnage, and it really they didn't care the dumping location didn't care what it was. They were like, yeah, we're a dump, sure, bring it in. And at that point it would be that dump, and that whoever that is, you're not going to like my answer, but like you would be held accountable for that because you knew what was coming and you accepted it. That is now your responsibility.
well,
I mean,
if you think about it, it does kind of mean that Alabama is the shit.
I don't
well,
think this
no,
is
we're
the
the
way we would like to be the
shithole.
shits.
I don't think that's how we want to be. Yeah.
No, we don't
Oh,
want to be the
God had a
Here
chance.
we
shithole.
go.
Okay, my
Alabama's
bad, my bad.
slogan.
But it's
Well,
not the
I
first time
mean,
either, so it's not a one-off occurrence. So
Uh-huh.
And Jesse Wilson in the comments was asking your stance on coal. Because I know
on
coal is,
coal,
yeah, it's pretty big. My grandmother
so
worked there for 50 something years. So,
we're talking about like the Warrior Met, like the actual like steel coal that they're using there, or what kind of?
I think she's
she's,
just talking about the coal mines in general.
yeah.
Uh, there are the ones that are here in Warrior Met. I understand are actually useful for us building building things industrially. They're used for, I think, for helping with melting steel, if I remember correctly. It's been a little bit since I looked into it because the miners there have been on strike for a bit. I support the people in general. How exactly we need to affect the coal mines, I don't have a direct answer right now.
Gotcha.
Jess, please reach out. Let's chat because I need to know more about it. If they're currently negatively impacting the environment, I know it's not. What's the time of they cut off the top of the mountain? It's way past midnight at this point.
Mm-hmm.
They literally blast off the top of a mountain. Like it's not that. That's not happening here. So I need to know.
I know what you're
Well,
talking about. It
Yeah.
left my brain
well,
too.
Jesse's husband, he works in the coal mines, correct? Doesn't he, Terry?
He used to,
He used
but
to.
I think they shut
I think that's why
down.
she was asking. So, and my
Yeah.
grandmother worked for Warrior Met, so.
The Warrior Met miners have been on strike for more than a year. Yeah, they're currently
She
on strike
retired
and
a
have been
few years
for
ago.
over a
Yeah.
year now.
If you become governor, what is your take on local businesses? Are you going to find a way to tax them less and tax the major corporations who try to skate through it without paying fully, or what's your take on that?
I don't have a plan to tax small businesses more. No. Ideally, it would be those who are taking stuff away from our state. So the smaller businesses are typically keeping that money here.
So
The
you want
larger
to go after
ones
the
that are
corporate
taking it out of state. Yeah, I mean, we have to create revenue for our state so that we can provide better healthcare and education for people. And the only way to do that is to have more money. We don't make our own, so we've got to rely on taxes. And I don't think that's appropriate to do on the people. It's more appropriate to do on the businesses. And the better way to do that is to stop it from leaving our state in the first place. So that would be typically the larger businesses. Yeah.
Damn, I like you, Jared. And if
And
All
I
right.
damn
I
like
think
you,
I heard something. I may be wrong, Jared, but did you something about removing like just the taxes on groceries
Yeah,
for the
grocery
reg?
tax.
I
I
mean,
would love to
because
get.
we
I'd love to
pay
get
a
rid of that.
lot
Yeah.
in tax on groceries.
Yeah. Broadly speaking, I don't think anybody should die because they don't have access to the essentials to live. So one of those is water, it's food, it's shelter, and it's. I put healthcare in the same piece because we used to be able to grow and raise our own medicines, and you currently can't do that without having a lot of property to do so, and it's nearly impossible to do that currently. So healthcare as a society, we
Well,
should
and
want
for
everybody to be
people
better off.
like, say, people who choose to smoke pot in Alabama versus being on prescription medication for anxiety. Well, they can't grow their weed because they're going to go to freaking prison for life,
Right.
if they get caught with what, 10 or 12 plants. So, yeah, we can't
I just don't think people
essentially
should die because they
grow.
don't have access to healthcare when the only way to get
Right.
healthcare is to work within the confines of our systems, right? So like we force people to work to then have the way to take care of their own bodies. So food, water, shelter, and healthcare. And I don't think people should die because they don't have access to those resources. And as a society, I would hope that we would feel the same way. And I think most people do. We just don't think about it that way.
You
Right,
know, I
right.
have actually come across some people who argue the opposite, that they need to earn their rights to survive. And I feel
Yeah.
like if you're human, that is all you need to pay to the world to survive. You're
Well,
human.
I
We have,
was, I was driving down the road one day, and I'll make this comment as we're ending here. And it hit me. I mean, we're human. We live on this amazing planet. We are the top of the food chain, but everything about our survival depends on money. My dog doesn't care if I've got money. You know, the feral cats out here aren't surviving on money. But by God, if we ain't got money, we're not going to survive. I mean, there's something wrong with that. There's just something wrong with that.
we have been, for lack of better terms, indoctrinated into a thought. And that's why I don't blame the people like what Jess has run into. I've run into them also. And I don't blame them directly. Like you've been brought up thinking that that's the way this works. And it's like, I can't do it for everybody. But if if you even think remotely like that, I would implore you to ask, like, do you think that way about a baby that's born? Like, do you literally think that if, a mother doesn't have money, that she and that baby should die because they don't have money? And like, if you
Right.
Well, I
do,
mean, but that's the
I
thing. What they're going to do is they're going to then take the baby from the mother who can't afford it and doesn't have the resources, put it in
right,
foster care, and then give the foster care the resources to take care of the baby.
right, and what I usually point out is whose money did you just use?
Yeah.
Everybody's money. You just
Right.
Hmm.
used everybody's money to save that baby. Like, why not save the baby and the mom and let them stay together, like, and
Hmm.
give them what they need to survive, rather
Right.
than
Why traumatize a child
yeah.
and
And I'm not
cause
saying there
separation
aren't
and
times where I might need to get separated from
anxiety?
a family. I get it. There's abusive relationships. That stuff happens. Yeah.
Right. Well, Jared, I know Jesse
But
Wilson had asked
the
this
focus should be trying to
earlier.
maintain.
Oh,
Yeah.
I know we're getting, it's what 12:30. We don't want to keep you up all night, but tell us what we can do to help you become the next governor of Alabama.
The three main things: continuing to engage on social media. That is important and it's free. Outside of the little bit of time it takes to like, comment, and share. If you have any spare money, because that's how this world works currently, donating does help. And then the last would be volunteering time, and that is as little or as much as you have. And what I tell people is, our volunteer form seems like you're applying for a job, even though you're not getting paid. But it is so that I know that you're serious about wanting to help. Because
Right.
in order
And
to
I
do this, we
submitted
have to be
mine.
serious.
I
Yeah,
submitted mine,
we
and I
we
think,
had about 50 come through at one time. Within a couple
okay,
weeks, we had about 50 come through. So we are slogging through
good,
them.
good, good.
But when I say 50, that doesn't mean we have 50 people working 20 hours a day. It could be 50 people who said, hey, I can work a little bit for the rest of July and then in August.
Right,
But then the rest of the year I can't help. Or hey, I can't help until October when my
right,
school's done and I've settled in and we're good. I can help you in October. So the number isn't the number may be higher than it, or maybe lower than it actually seems. But anybody who wants to help, we welcome the help. Um, just know that if we want you to come in, it is a self-starter situation. We're going to get you in with a task management software, and it's literally, hey, if you like art, you do design, go in and find tasks that are design related and just make stuff. If you like to do research, come in, do some research, and let us know what you find so that we can make policies that are uh, make plans that are realistic so that we can actually accomplish some goals.
right,
And, you know, if it's not something that the governor can do in their position specifically, I'm happy to come up with some policy that we can just serve on a plate and say, hey, legislature, like, here's an idea. The people have spoken. Here's what we want to do about, let's say it's marijuana. Like, hey, we've done the
right,
research. Here's the bits. Do your thing. And as soon as they say no, we can just publicly say, and even as governor, like, hey guys, state of Alabama, they don't care about what you want to do, and I don't care. Like, we'll say it. Like, hey, I don't have a party to tell me I can't do it, but it's like
right,
they don't care. They're saying no to you. So we'll find more creative ways if we have to, but at least we can publicly present it to them and see what they do from there, and shine a spotlight on the fact that they literally don't care what our residents have to say.
right. And that's so many of us, I think, feel that way in this state that, our vote, the, nobody I voted for in the local elections isn't in any office right now.
Yeah,
Nobody. And nobody I voted for probably in the last 3 or 4 elections, with the exception of Doug Jones. But that was kind of by default.
yeah,
And unfortunately, we didn't get him a second time. Um, we got Tommy fucking Tuberville, man. I still can't even. I just wanted to shake everybody in the
It's
state and say,
Alabama. I
"What
can
the
believe
fuck
it.
are
I
you
don't like it.
thinking?"
I don't like it, but I can believe it.
Well, I
I
mean, I can
shouldn't have
believe.
been, but I was surprised when I called his office to to tell him not to do something and pick one of the things that our state's done. That I was calling to leave a voicemail and say, hey, like you really should please speak up against this and vote against it. And his voicemail was, you've reached the voicemail for Coach Tuberville. I was like, this is your you had to set this up intentionally. It's a new number. Like,
Oh
oh,
no.
sure,
But
all
he
right, bud.
won on that platform, Brian. I don't know if you know anything about that, but Tommy Tuber, we have a big football rivalry in Alabama. Alabama versus Auburn, both in school states.
Yeah.
Tommy Tuberville was the coach for Auburn University. And so the freaking Auburn fans came out of the woodwork,
And
and
voted him
now
into office.
this guy is senator of Alabama. Don't know the first thing. That he supported Donald Trump, and he was an Auburn football coach, and that's how he won.
Sounds like Nadine
So,
Woodward up here.
can I
She
add one
was
comment?
Yeah, sure.
Cool. Uh, Joshua Dickerson, you said I sound awesome, but I have no chance at Alabama governor. I would ask why. I would
I think
love
you'll
to
be
hear why.
surprised, Joshua. Yeah, that's true, Jesse. He wasn't even a good coach.
No, he wasn't a good coach, and now we got him as a senator. Oh my
And
God!
I
And it
probably
says you
shouldn't say this on a recorded stream, but like I don't pay attention to football, so I consider myself Switzerland,
I know
and
enough
like
because
I
my
stay
husband's
out
an
of it.
Auburn. My husband's an Auburn fan, so is my entire family. I myself only claim to go for Alabama because it drives all of them crazy. I don't watch football at all.
Yeah,
well,
I'm Switzerland.
roll
I'm
Tide
about
all the
to
way. That's one thing I will say, that if I was born and bred with anything, it was that I. Well, when I was 6 years old, I came home and I told somebody I was an Auburn fan, and my grandmother and my uncle had come to Jesus meeting with me and informed me that no, I was not an Auburn fan, that I bleed red, and that I am an Alabama fan.
That's
So,
Alabama.
and
well,
so here I
I'm
am.
about to get outlawed from Alabama because I think college football fucking sucks.
I'd rather read a book or play a video game or do
And
some programming. I'm a
if I
nerd.
have to choose a team in college football, sorry guys, but I'm going North Carolina Tar Heels all the way.
All right. Well, it is time for us to wrap up. We're at about
Right, Jared,
12:40.
tell us one more time where they can find you, how they can help you. We know, right in Jared Budlong.
Yeah, get used to spelling my name. We're working on a jingle that matches the Oscar Mayer baloney tune. We're working on
Nice.
that one now to get people to sing along and remember how to
Right.
spell my name. But
Oh,
so
that's
it
a
would
good
be,
idea.
yeah, it'd be jaredalgov.org. You can go there to find any of the resources related to the campaign, whether that's donating, volunteering time, or all the social media connections. So you can like, comment, and share, and make sure you're talking to your neighbors. Talk to the people around you if it's safe for you. I will give that caveat. I understand some people aren't in safe places, but if it's safe, start that conversation, especially anybody who just doesn't typically vote, and get them out to vote and let them know that in some races it matters, and the governor position is one of those. And we've got somebody who actually cares.
Right.
Well,
Well, thank
Jared,
you so much, Jared, for being here. And we'd love to have you on again sometime as we get closer. We would check back in and see what else we could do to get your name out there.
Cool. Sounds good.
All right. Well, we will see you guys next Sunday night. And I think that's it. We got anything else, Terry?
I don't think so. Hit us
All
with
right.
that one liner, Jess.
I did not have one prepared. I did not know we were back to the one-liners, Terry.
Well,
You
I
have to
mean,
warn me
damn.
ahead of time.
Well, I'll hit it. Everybody, if you're not registered to vote, go register to vote and get out and vote. It matters.
I got the one liner for the night.
Oh, there we go.
Have a hauntingly good night and a ghoulishly good day.
That's a good one. We'll go with that.
Thank you. Thank you.